Breaking news from both Westminster and Buckingham Palace, and this time, the headlines are unlike anything we've seen before. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is on the verge of facing the most humiliating and career-defining week of his life. The walls are closing in, his royal immunity has officially vanished, and Parliament itself is preparing to step into the spotlight. The royal family, once united in silence, is watching one of its own stand exposed in a scandal that threatens to reshape the very foundation of the British monarchy. This isn't just another royal headline. This is a constitutional crisis in the making, and what happens in the coming days could have historic and devastating consequences for everyone involved. If you want to stay on top of every shocking twist, every exclusive revelation, and every moment that will define the monarchy's future, subscribe to Royals Explored right now, hit the notification bell, and stay with us as we unpack the story that's shaking the palace from the inside out. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Yes, that's right, no, Prince, no, His Royal Highness, just Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. That name alone tells you everything about how far he's fallen. Once one of the most powerful and privileged figures in Britain, he now stands stripped of all royal titles and honors. At 65 years old, he has gone from the Duke of York to a man without official status, without protection, and without the shield of royal immunity that once kept him untouchable. As Parliament returns from its brief recess, the political knives are out. Liberal Democrat MPs are preparing to challenge the government directly on the issue of Andrew's residence at Royal Lodge, Windsor. They're demanding answers about taxpayer money, about ministerial advice, and about any potential payout that could be granted to Andrew for vacating the property. This is a moment of reckoning unlike any other. For centuries, members of the royal family have enjoyed a level of protection in Parliament that ordinary citizens could never dream of. It was considered improper, even unconstitutional, to criticize royals by name inside the House of Commons. But that tradition is now being shattered. Because Andrew, having lost his titles, is no longer a royal in the eyes of Parliament. He is a private citizen, a commoner, and therefore fair game for public scrutiny. For the first time in modern British history, a former senior royal will face open criticism, questioning, and possible investigation within the Commons. The gloves are off. At the heart of this controversy lies Royal Lodge, a magnificent 30-room mansion nestled within Windsor Great Park, once the beloved home of the Queen Mother. For more than 20 years, Andrew has lived there surrounded by manicured gardens, protected by royal security, and insulated by privilege. But that chapter may be closing. Reports suggest that he is being pressured to leave the estate, and the details of his departure could soon become public in the most humiliating way imaginable. So why is Parliament stepping in now? The answer lies in what Andrew has lost: his titles, his rank, and his royal identity. When he was still Prince Andrew, he was shielded from direct criticism. Parliament could debate the monarchy as an institution but could not target individuals. Now that protection is gone. Andrew's private finances, his living arrangements, and even the lease on Royal Lodge are all fair game for scrutiny. MPs are framing this as a matter of public accountability. They argue that taxpayers have a right to know how Crown estate properties are used and whether public funds indirectly support Andrew's lifestyle. They're asking whether he will be compensated when he leaves Royal Lodge, and if so, who authorized such payments? These questions, once unthinkable, are now being asked openly on the floor of Parliament. To understand how Andrew reached this point, we have to revisit the downfall that stunned the world. Once celebrated as the Queen's favorite son and a decorated Royal Navy officer who served in the Falklands War, Andrew's career and reputation imploded following his association with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. When Virginia Giuffre accused him of sexual abuse, allegations he denied, public opinion turned sharply against him. His infamous 2019 BBC interview, intended to clear his name, became one of the most disastrous media appearances in modern royal history. His explanations were widely mocked, his tone seen as arrogant and detached from reality. The backlash was swift. Sponsors dropped him, charities cut ties, and Buckingham Palace was forced to act. In 2022, he was stripped of his military affiliations and royal patronages, and forbidden from using the style, His Royal Highness. Earlier this year, King Charles took an even more decisive step, removing Andrew's princely title altogether. It was a harsh but calculated move to preserve the monarchy's credibility. Now, Parliament's involvement pushes that humiliation to an entirely new level. For Andrew, this week is not just about losing a home, it's about losing the last fragments of royal privilege. For the monarchy, it's about survival in an era demanding transparency and accountability. Inside Buckingham Palace, tensions are reportedly high. King Charles has long been determined to modernize the monarchy, to streamline operations, reduce public costs, and restore trust. But Andrew's continued presence at Royal Lodge undermines that mission. Charles has privately urged his brother to relocate, possibly to Frogmore Cottage, previously occupied by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Andrew, however, refuses to budge, insisting that his long-term lease gives him the right to remain. That standoff has become symbolic, a battle between entitlement and reform, between the monarchy's past and its uncertain future. With Parliament now circling, that battle is becoming impossible to ignore. MPs are preparing to question ministers on the specifics of Andrew's financial situation, the costs of maintaining Royal Lodge, the nature of his lease, and any potential taxpayer involvement. These questions will be public, the answers scrutinized by the press, and the optics disastrous. For King Charles, the stakes couldn't be higher. Every public clash involving Andrew chips away at the monarchy's moral authority. The royal family's credibility depends on the perception that they represent duty, dignity, and restraint. Yet scandals like this remind the public of privilege, secrecy, and impunity. And so, this week is more than just another royal embarrassment. It's a constitutional moment, one that could redefine the boundaries between monarchy and parliament. If Andrew, a former prince, can now be publicly challenged by elected officials, then the unspoken line separating royal and political spheres has been crossed. Some experts argue that this marks the beginning of a new era in which fallen royals are treated like any other citizen, subject to oversight and accountability. Others insist that Andrew's case is unique, a one-off scenario born from extreme circumstances. But whatever the outcome, the precedent will be set. Within the royal household, emotions are mixed. Some family members sympathize with Andrew, believing he's already paid dearly for his mistakes. Others see his stubbornness as a threat to everything King Charles is trying to achieve. Even Andrew's daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, find themselves in an impossible position. Torn between love for their father and loyalty to the crown. Meanwhile, public opinion is split. Some argue Andrew deserves privacy and a chance to rebuild his life, especially since he was never criminally convicted. Others believe that given the serious nature of his associations and the privileges he enjoyed, he must face the same level of scrutiny as any public figure. The next few days will be critical. Parliamentary questions will be raised, ministers will be pressed for details, and the royal family will be forced to confront yet another wave of headlines. For Andrew, this could mark the final collapse of whatever remains of his royal image. For the monarchy, it could determine how future scandals are handled, and whether the institution can survive in a world that demands honesty and transparency from even its most sacred traditions. Make sure you're subscribed to Royals Explored because this story is far from over. We'll be tracking every parliamentary exchange, every palace statement, and every new revelation that emerges from this extraordinary confrontation between politics and royalty. This is more than just a scandal, it's a test of whether the modern British monarchy can adapt to the 21st century or whether it's destined to crumble under the weight of its own past. What do you think about Parliament stepping in? Is Andrew finally being held accountable, or has the punishment gone too far? And what does this mean for the future of the crown? Let us know in the comments below, and stay tuned, because the next chapter in this royal crisis is about to unfold.